Folks, I'm Ryan7. I am currently in the midst of an 18-year journey to read every single DC comic ever released. Generally, I read 10 comics a day and post a video a day, but occasionally, once a week, I'll upload a bigger video like this that will be 7 videos put together, 7 of the daily videos, and I'll post this to give you an easier way to digest my content. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. The first comic we read today was Crack Comics number 5. Nothing happened. Not a lot happened. A lot of these are just kind of empty. Not empty. There's a lot of stories in them, but all of them are boring and ass, and so I don't talk about them. Next, we move on to Detective Comics number 43, where we actually have a pretty fun Batman comic. Batman actually gets kind of Truman Showed. He gets Truman Showed a little bit. Kind of Truman Showed, not really, but he finds a fake town, and I'll get into that a little bit. Bruce and Dick take a vacation from crime fighting. They decide they need a vacation. So, they arrive at a hotel in the town they're staying at, and they witness police brutality in person. There's some police exercising their powers inappropriately. Over-exaggerating their power over someone. You know what I mean? When Bruce tries to ask about what happened with some of the people after it finishes, because he doesn't stop it while it's happening for some reason, people ignore him and walk away nervously. That night, Batman begins to investigate. He saves a man named Carter, who was about to be killed by the police for speaking up against the mayor. Turns out the town has been taken over by a dirty politician named Greer, who was taking orders from a racketeer named Bugs Norton. All the police force was fired and replaced with Norton's thugs. This also might be the first time people are shown as directly being scared of Batman. I don't remember that happening in any of the previous issues. I could be wrong, but I think it is. Batman and Robin eventually track down a truck full of dope and stop it. This isn't really connected to the plot. It's Bugs Norton's drug truck, right? It's his drug truck. And Batman and Robin stop it, I guess. But the drug stuff isn't connected to the main plot at all. They don't mention drugs at all. That's not like part of Bugs Norton's plan or anything. It's just a thing that happens. And then they start going around and dismantling slot machines that are in like every store, and they destroy all the slot machines, which by the way is a Superman plot that happened a while ago that we talked about. That's just a Superman plot, straight up. Someone's put in slot machines in the stores, and the superheroes gotta go around and destroy all the slot machines and save the kids from gambling. That explains both of these storylines, the Superman and this Batman one. Batman and Robin begin kidnapping cops. I guess they're not cops. I guess they're gangsters pretending to be cops, but still. I don't really know what they do with them. They never explains what they do with them. They just kind of disappear. They rally the citizens together and form a revolution to take back the town. Norton and Greer are defeated, and Batman and Robin get statues, which is pretty cool. I thought this issue was fun. Like I said, it wasn't exactly a Truman Show deal, but it was kind of. It was a little bit. Not really. I just said that to clickbait you. Sorry. But it was good. It was fun. That's all I can say. That's all I can really say about these 40's comics, right? They're all fun, but there's not a whole lot of substance. And there's like that drug stuff was very clearly, and the slot machine stuff was very clearly just to fill up pages. Also, something I've noticed about. Actually, I'm going to bring that up in the end. When I've talked about some more stuff. Feature Comics number 36. Not a whole lot happens. Flash Comics number 9. Oh yeah, Feature Comics, actually I fucking hate. I hate Feature Comics with all my heart. Sometimes I would rather kill myself than read Feature Comics, but I have to because it's my job. It's not my job, actually. I'm doing this out of my own volition. I don't get anything out of this. Flash Comics number 9. Some scientists discover a way to make giant Gila monsters, which are a type of lizard, I think. Flash is kind of slow in this issue. He runs, it takes him 3 hours to get 300,000 kilometers or something. There's a big distance that he crosses in 3 hours, but Flash nowadays can do that distance in a second. So yeah, he was a lot slower back in this time. Also, his speed is really inconsistent here. I guess the Flash's speed in general is really inconsistent generally. It's very inconsistent, actually. Some bank robbers force the scientist who made the giant Gila monsters to make more of them and help them rob banks. And for some reason, there's also a little electric switch that he has that can control them, but that never gets brought up outside of one panel. One panel where one of the thugs mentions it, and then it's never brought up again. It's not part of the solution. It's just never mentioned. Hit Comics number 3, not much here. Master Comics number 6, not much here. More Fun Comics number 59, we have The Spectre. So Jim is asked to help stop the theft of a bunch of furs that are disappearing and getting stolen from trucks. And it turns out the truck driver is helping the fur thieves steal the furs and for a cut. Dr. Fate cruise ship is attacked by aliens. I'm not kidding. That's the Dr. Fate issue. So in the same comic, More Fun Comics number 59, we have the Spectre stopping fur thieves and Dr. Fate fighting aliens. These are in the same exact comic issue. And it's like weird. I read the whole Dr. Fate issue. Well, I read all of them, but it's hard to explain. They come down in a ship and they attack a cruise ship and try to attract it towards an island, and the Dr. Fate just kind of defeats them. And they have these weird energy balls. It's very intriguing. Mystery Man Comics 14, not much happening there. National Comics number 3, not much happening there, unless you want me to talk about the Make America Great Again guy. No, that's Donald Trump. I'm talking about the Uncle Sam, unless you want me to talk about Uncle Sam, who is the main feature in National Comics. He is. But I'm not talking about him. Slam Bang Comics number 7, not much happening there. So, those are all my comics for today. That's my 10 for today, day 33. We are back at dailies. I will be uploading something special on October 31st, so be ready for that. I did want to say this for the end. A lot of these older comics feel very... There's not much conflict. Obviously, every issue has conflict, every story has conflict, but there's not much, conflict within the conflict, you know what I mean? Like, there aren't many obstacles. Like, in a Batman story, in a Detective Comics issue, the Batman part, there'll be the main conflict, right? And the entire comic will just be Batman solving that, which is fine, that makes sense, that's fine. But he won't run into any obstacles stopping him from that. Or he'll run into obstacles, but he'll immediately pass through them. Like, he doesn't ever get stopped at any point, right? He just kind of cruises on by, and the entire issue is just kind of him cruising on by. This happens with Superman and the Flash and the Spectre and Dr. Fate and all these superhero characters too. Slam Bradley, I know, but at least older Slam Bradley issues, because I don't like Slam Bradley's art style now, but this would be a little different. No, it happened with Slam Bradley too. Sometimes they do well with it, sometimes they do well with the different obstacles, but sometimes it just feels like filler to fill up pages. Sometimes they're just not super well written, I guess. They're fun, and there's not much else to say about them. They're fun, and some of them have like good messages, but there's not much else you can say about them. They're not the best written comics ever. They're creative, I'll give them that. Dr. Fate did fight aliens today on a cruise ship who had energy balls, and so I guess that's pretty creative. Starting today, we have Smash Comics number 14. Not much happens here, as always. Move on to Wiz Comics number 8, where we see some Shazam stuff, right? A woman and an elephant are sucked underwater by a weird current. Captain Marvel investigates and discovers a scheme to capture people using currents, but it's never explained why they're capturing people. They're just kind of doing it for fun. Captain Marvel stops Dr. Death and Professor Skull, who are the villains of this comic. And it's still never explained why they're stealing people using the current. We move on to Action Comics number 29, where we have Superman. So people who pay for this specific life insurance type, called Fullerton Life Insurance, always end up dying. Clark and Lois decide to investigate and discover Fullerton doesn't know about this. Fullerton is the owner of the life insurance, which is called Fullerton Life Insurance. So it turns out some random guy and a politician are behind it. They murder the people who take the life insurance so that they can make money off it. Adventure Comics number 55, not much happens. All-American Comics number 19 is another corrupt insurance plot. It's a very similar plot. It follows a corrupt insurance that gives people life insurance and then kills them to collect the cash. But this time, instead of being some random guys who just want to make money, it's a gangster who owns like a casino and does it to the people who are in debt from the casino. And Green Lantern saves the day. The Atom is introduced. This is the first appearance of the Atom. So the Atom is this short guy named Al who's bullied a lot for his shortness. He gives a homeless guy some money, and the homeless guy decides to train him to be an athlete. So a year later, they move back to the city after a year of training. Al discovers he's a lot stronger than they expected. Like, he rips a doorknob off its hinges, he throws a guy, and then Al saves his ex from a kidnapping and leaves his identity a secret. Blue Beetle number 4, nothing interesting there. Crack Comics number 6, nothing interesting there. Detective Comics number 44. This one was interesting, okay? Batman finds Batman and Robin find this weird guy, alright? He's called Dr. Murko. He's a creepy scientist. He says he's discovered a way to access the 4th dimension, which is a little confusing, timeline-wise, canon-wise, because Slam Bradley already discovered the 4th dimension, which is like time and moving through time. But in this comic, the 4th dimension is just an actual different universe. It's not like a dimension in 1, 2, 3, 4 at all. It's just a different universe. But they follow Dr. Murko into the different universe, Batman and Robin, and they end up discovering it's a land of giants and small, short people, dwarves, midgets. The giants are evil, and the short people are nice. And the short people are called, like, the small people. I think they're just called the small people. Batman and Robin save the day, they defeat the giants, blah, blah, blah. Turns out, there's no 4th dimension, there's no Dr. Murko. And this all took place in Robin's dream. Yeah, this is one of those, it was all a dream stories. And those suck. And this sucks. And it made me so mad when I read that. It fucking pissed me off. Because I actually really enjoyed this one. Other than that, this one was really fun. There was a lot of fun in this. Like when Robin had to fight a cat. When they got captured by the giants. The fight scene between Batman and Robin and the giants was really good. Probably my favorite fight scene in a 1940s Batman comic so far. But it's all a dream, so nothing you can do, I guess. Whatever. We move on to Feature Comics number 37. Nothing happens here. Flash Comics number 10. And in the Flash portion of this, we see some guy that wants to become the superintendent of the schools to steal their money. Flash kidnaps the bad guy and shows him poor people, which ends up saving the day, and that one kind of sucks. So, those are my 10 comics for the day. I'll read another 10 tomorrow. Today's a shorter video because I'm just really pissed off about that Batman one. It was so good, and then they just threw the fucking dreaming stuff in there. Today we start with Hit Comics number 4. Not a lot happens here, which is the same case with Master Comics number 7. The first time we actually get some interesting stuff today is More Fun Comics number 60. In the Spectre issue is actually kind of fun. Today. However, it was a little difficult to read because it was difficult to read. The scan wasn't particularly great. But basically, the Spectre faces a force even stronger than himself, and it's pretty fun. There's some like framing stuff going on. It's cool. It's fun. In Dr. Fate, some little men attack mankind. So there's a group of like 3 short guys. They're very short, and they get on a weird spaceship and they start shooting buildings. And Dr. Fate comes in, and he's like, I gotta stop this. So he shoots them. He kills them with his finger guns or whatever. Then he decides, okay, I gotta find where these guys came from. So he finds this cave that they came out of. Turns out inside this cave are the 3 Fates, 3 giant guys who have something to do with fate. I'm not entirely sure, but they can like create people, and they created these 3 little guys to destroy humanity for some reason. So Dr. Fate takes away the 3 Fates' power and then locks them in the cave. And that is More Fun Comics number 60. So pretty interesting, you know. It was fun. I think Dr. Fate is really good. Dr. Fate's a lot of fun. Originally, when Dr. Fate was first introduced, most of his comics were more, I don't know, almost on the boring side of the mystical, but now they're really sort of adventure and fun. Mystery Men Comics number 15, not much fun, not much interesting here. National Comics number 4, I'm not talking about fucking Uncle Sam. Smash Comics number 15, not much interesting here. Superman number 6, this is a big one. So we have 4 Superman stories. In the first one, Lois is knocked unconscious and framed as a murderer. Turns out the killer was just some random architect. Also, finally, we get someone who actually knows who Superman is. Someone who has heard of Superman. There's a guy in here who sees Superman get hit by a bullet and is like, wait, dude, I've heard that you can do that. I just didn't believe it. And this is the first time we've seen someone recognize Superman before getting beaten up by him. Which is cool, I guess. But still, you know, you'd expect a lot more people to know about him and how powerful he is, considering how long he's been in Metropolis at this point. The second story is just a standard racketeering plot, pretty boring. The third story involves a boat and a plane, and it's pretty boring too. The final story in this issue is actually really good. Basically, Clark is sent to write about a building that recently collapsed. He discovers that the head of construction. Oh no, he discovers the head of the construction firm is dead. Clark notices that the head, who is named John, committed suicide, but like he's positioned like he committed suicide. He's holding a gun and he's in a suicide stance. But Clark is like, using his microscopic vision, he notices that he was strangled before he was shot, so he couldn't have killed himself, and the fingerprints on the gun indicate that the person who shot him only had 4 fingers. So Clark learns from John's widow, his wife that he left behind, John has been having some friction with his employer beforehand and was fronting for a different company. When Clark figures out what company John fronted for, he'll find the killer, is his thought process. So Clark and Lois are assigned to investigate the under construction stadium. When they get there, the guy leading the construction, I guess, gets in an altercation with Clark and pushes him. So Clark tricks the man into revealing who his employer is. So Clark goes and finds this employer. Turns out he only has 4 fingers. Clark realizes that's really suspicious, so Clark becomes Superman to investigate the stadium. Turns out all the materials that are making up the stadium are weak and cheap. The cement, the wood, everything is just weak and cheap and easily destructible. Superman saves some workers who fall into a vat of cement. Lois invites Clark to the stadium's opening, but he decides to stay home so he can investigate some things with Superman in secret. Superman listens in on the employer's phone call. The employer blackmails the mayor into signing a release that will give him money, I think. I'm not entirely sure about that part. Superman takes the mayor and Jackson, who is the employer, to the stadium. He traps them in the tower part of the stadium while saving as many people as he can while the stadium begins to crumble. Superman is at one point forced to choose between saving Lois and saving a bunch of children. Lois tells him to save the children, so he does, but then he goes over and he digs her out of the rubble, and it turns out she's badly injured. So he takes Lois to the hospital. Then he returns to the stadium and saves Jackson and the mayor just before the tower crumbles. He puts them on the... Okay, this part is insane. He takes them, he attaches them to the bottom of a plane and basically says, when this plane lands, you will get squished to death. You'll get crushed to death. And if you don't tell me, if you don't confess, I will let that happen. So obviously they confess, but it's crazy that he threatened that. Then Clark finds out Lois will die without a blood transfusion, so he decides, okay, test my blood. He rips off a piece of his skin so the needle can actually penetrate, so nobody finds out his skin is indestructible. He just casually rips it off, and it turns out his blood is good for every blood type. Also, as soon as Lois has his blood inside of her, she gets up right out of bed and is completely fine, which is pretty crazy. Clark has crazy blood, which should be obvious because it's Superman. Anyways, that is Superman number 6. I really liked this issue, especially that last story. It was fun. It was good. That ending moment with Lois was lighthearted and nice and sweet. And now we move on to Wiz Comics number 9. Captain Marvel. Billy learns about a jewel that was stolen from a museum with no evidence. He begins to investigate and discovers a scientist far away from the city who owns the only autogyro, which is a toy helicopter. And Billy has an idea. Alright, turns out the scientist Durgan has a shrinking ray and uses it to have people steal things for him using the autogyro. He has 2 employees. I think one of them is forced to work with him, and one of them does it voluntarily. Captain Marvel helps one of the shrunken people, Marco, become big again. Turns out Marco is from the country that the jewels were stolen from, and that's why he was forced to steal them. And he was kidnapped by Durgan. So Shazam nearly kills Durgan and his assistant by crashing the autogyro, which they use. So there's also a big ray that Shazam uses to help Marco become big again. And Durgan and his driver, who is also in on this, use it to make the autogyro massive so that they can fly away. And Shazam grabs the autogyro, rips off the fabric covering it, and it breaks down, obviously, and it crashes into a big haystack, which lights on fire. So they nearly die, but Shazam finds a truck of milk and dumps it on the fire. I didn't know they had trucks of milk. It's not a truck of milk, it's like a tank of milk that's part of a train. There's a train, and the train has a big tank of milk, for some reason. Do they do that? I don't think they do that. But basically, the criminals are arrested, Marco is freed, and the day is saved. Now we move on to Action Comics number 30. This one was interesting, to say the least. Metropolis is plunged into the winter in the middle of the summer. Some bald guy wants a lot of radium. He used the radium to affect the weather and destroy people, reducing them to shadows, and he's bald. Okay. So I know that's a very vague description, but honestly, I couldn't muster anything else, because this storyline is so damn confusing. It's confusing. It is. There's a lot of things that just don't really make sense here. It kind of jumps from one plot to another. There's some weird stuff about Arab people in it too, that feel Islamophobic, and there's not really a reason for them to be here and be doing what they're doing. And there's some weird civil war going on between this bald guy's employees. And they use these energy balls that reduce people to shadows. And there's this one girl who's pretending to be a reporter, but it turns out she's actually on the opposite side of Superman, and she tries to kill him. It's very confusing. It's a very confusing issue. Also, why are all of Superman's supervillains bald at the start? That's a little crazy. Adventure Comics number 56, nothing interesting happens. First, we have All American Comics number 20, which we see Green Lantern. In this issue, it's a fairly standard racketeering plot. There's a lot of racketeering stuff in these early superhero comics, a lot. Every day we have some racketeering stuff. Okay, in one of the superheroes. There's some interesting stuff to do with the radio, and decoding messages and stuff, but it's not that great. It's just a standard racketeering plot, really. Crack Comics number 7, not much happening there. Detective Comics 45 is alright. The Return of the Joker, who's now going by Wreckage, to get away with some things. Batman used to pole vault in college is something we learn in this issue. Overall, though, pretty mid issue. Then we move on to Feature Comics number 38, obviously. Hate it, because it's Feature Comics. Flash Comics number 11, Hawkman does not fight a gorilla, and the Flash does also not fight a gorilla, and there's no gorilla fighting in this issue, despite gorilla fighting being on the title page. Hawkman doesn't fight a gorilla. There's not even a gorilla in the Hawkman issue, but the page depicts Hawkman fighting a gorilla, so I want to see a Hawkman fight a gorilla. But no, you're gonna false advertise me. Hit Comics number 5, not much happening there. Master Comics number 8 is The Return of Bullet Man, who, if you remember, actually belongs to Nickel Comics. So I guess they moved him over. I guess he was just that successful of a character. Then we move on to More Fun Comics number 61. In the Spectre, there is a fake Spectre framing the real one, which is cool. Clarice makes an appearance. Jim Kerrigan's ex. She doesn't do much, but she's there, and he saves her. It's an okay, story about, whatever. And Dr. Fate, also in More Fun Comics number 61. The Earth is about to be destroyed by a weird cloud that will interrupt Earth's orbit with the sun. Fate destroys the cloud and is told by scientists that there are a ton more headed towards Earth. Fate destroys the other clouds and tracks them to their origin planet, a pirate planet that isn't bound by any orbit and floats freely through space. Also, whoever wrote Dr. Fate had a weird obsession with orbs and globes. Because if you remember in the last issue of Dr. Fate, there were also some orbs and globes used by the aliens. Also, maybe people in general were just obsessed with orbs back then, because in the Superman issue from either yesterday or the day before yesterday, he fought some guys that were using orbs to kill people too. So there's a lot of orbs going on in the 40s. Fate ends up destroying the entire pirate planet by pushing it into a sun, which is a pretty cool feat, to be clear. I think Fate is the strongest DC character currently in this 1941 era. And then Fate kills the scientists who pulled the pirate planet towards Earth. Moving on, we have Mystery Men Comics number 16, and then National Comics number 5, and that is our 10 for the day. I know this is a shorter video, not much I can do about that. I really like Dr. Fate. I really like Dr. Fate overall, right now. I think he's probably my favorite character to read currently. Obviously Superman's great, but, Dr. Fate kind of up there. Green Lantern's fun too, Spectre's okay. Batman is really flimsy, right? Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's and the Flash usually sucks, unfortunately. Starting with Smash Comics number 16, in which we see the Ray. The Ray's first appearance was actually Smash Comics number 14, but I did forget to talk about that. However, in this issue, the Ray fights a guy who turns into liquids. I don't have much to say about it, but he does defeat the guy who turns into liquids by like freezing him, and then police stab him in the back. So I don't really know why the police are the reason the villain dies. But now we move on to Wiz Comics number 10. We have Shazam. Now in Shazam, Butia and Savannah. Butia is the princess of Venus. The planet, yes, the planet. She's from Venus, the planet, and she's a princess of it. And she's been down to Earth a couple times. And she works with Dr. Savannah, who is an evil mad scientist. They have returned from Venus, because they were both sent to Venus by Shazam a while ago, a few issues ago. Butia is now pretending to be famous actress Dot Darling, who for some reason is allowed to see secret American military weapons, which is confusing, because she's just an actress. Unless I read the book wrong, she's just an actress. So it's a little confusing why she's being allowed to see American military plans about their air torpedoes that they're making, about their special new weapon that they're convinced is going to help them win the war. And they're letting this actress see it. I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to me, but I guess it's plot stuff, okay? Billy obviously sees this on TV and immediately recognizes Butia and realizes that's not Dot Darling, that's Butia, and follows her to get to Savannah. Billy is captured, and Savannah explains his real plan, which is to steal plans for the American military weapons, which are just torpedoes that go through the air instead of the water, copy them, and destroy the American Navy so he can take over America. So this American military weapon plan thing is a little confusing, because it sounds like these air torpedoes are just missiles, which I feel like were already a thing. So I feel like missiles are just air torpedoes, right? And I'm pretty sure they had missiles in the 40s. Actually, when were missiles invented? When were missiles invented? Okay, the 13th century. They had missiles in the... Air torpedoes... So, unless there's something different about torpedoes, I don't know. I feel like not that big of a breakthrough. Surely not big enough of a breakthrough to win the war all of a sudden. And I don't think it's enough to destroy the American military, but Dr. Savannah apparently thinks it is. So he captures Billy, and he puts a gag around his mouth, because he knows Billy is Shazam. He knows Billy is Captain Marvel and says it, and becomes Captain Marvel by saying Shazam. So he puts Billy on the boat. Right, on the boat he's going to use to destroy the American military. Also, his plan is to make... He has the plans for the weapons now, and his plan is to use the weapons to destroy the American military, right? So he has to make the weapons first, which is a little confusing, because he does make the weapons, and he gets to the point where he's about to attack the military, which means either he had Billy trapped for months or years, or he made the weapons, like, absurdly fast. And he 100% didn't have... He had Billy trapped for, like, a few hours in the story, which is really confusing, because he also just got the plans. So how is he making these so fast? But I guess he figured it out a way. I guess he has super builders or something. He puts Billy on the boat he's going to use to destroy the American military, the one with all the torpedoes on it, and he straps him under a big bucket of lava that in an hour will pour over and burn Billy to death. So, for some reason, Billy manages to escape because a tiny little bit of lava lands perfectly to destroy his gag without hurting him, which is like a 1 in a billion chance. That's some insane luck. That's some bullshit plot armor. They're comics, and I know there's going to be a little bit of plot armor, but this is like an insane amount of plot armor. So obviously he yells Shazam, becomes Captain Marvel. He catches all the air torpedoes midair and throws them underwater, thwarting Savannah's plan. Savannah does manage to escape on a torpedo that he was saving, that Captain Marvel didn't know about. So Savannah manages to escape. Butia actually warns the American military about Savannah's attack. So when the American military attacks her, thinking she's part of Savannah's crew, Shazam saves her and makes it so the military thinks she's the one who saved them, and so she gets all the credit, which is pretty nice of him. Now we move on to Action Comics number 31, where we have some fun Superman stuff. This is actually a really good issue. I had a lot of fun with this one. It's a very silly issue. It's not... I wouldn't say it's a good issue, but I would say it's very fun and silly, and I enjoyed it. Clark drives Lois to a town out of city for a vacation. Clark isn't on vacation. He's just taking Lois here so she can take a vacation. For some reason, everyone in the town is asleep. Suddenly, Lois also falls asleep. There's also like a little Smallville reference. I'm kidding. Smallville didn't exist at this time. But it is interesting. This is sort of similar to a scene that happens in Smallville, where Lex... well, it's not Lex Luthor, but some guy is hanging off the bridge in his car and Superman saves him. The plot overall is very confusing in this book. There's like a guy who made a sleeping gas and was going to sell it to the government. And there's this other guy who wanted to steal the sleeping gas and make the town fall asleep so we could like rob people, I think. There's also a bunch of bank robbers and a guy that tries to knock out Clark when he tells the sheriff about the sleeping gas. But all those people are kind of relevant to the story. So the only people that matter are Superman, the guy who made the gas, and the guy who's stealing it. The bank robbers and the guy who tries to knock out Clark are completely irrelevant, I feel like. I think I was a little tired when I was reading this, so maybe it's my fault, but I also feel like this was a very confusing plot. Maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention when reading it. But the bad guy steals an atom gun and tries to kill the guy who made the sleeping gas. Superman saves the day. Also, throughout this story, Lois Lane keeps falling unconscious. It's so funny. It's like a gag. It's so funny. She falls asleep over and over again. Half the time it's because Superman knocks her out. He like pinches a nerve in the back of her neck and knocks her out multiple times, which is really funny. I feel like he didn't need to do that. It's very funny though. Yeah. So as I said, it was a fun issue. I don't know if it was good. Actually, you know what? In a way, it's kind of my favorite Superman issue so far. Superman Appearance, Adventure Comics issue. Action Comics number 31. It was fun. It was really fun. It was goofy. The Lois getting knocked out stuff is probably the funniest thing I've seen in a comic yet during this journey. Now we move on to Adventure Comics number 57. Our Man fights a bunch of flying dogs. There's like a guy who makes flying dogs, and Our Man has to like round them all up and defeat them. Now we move on to All American Comics number 21. Green fucking Lantern stops a crooked lawyer from stealing someone's fortune through impersonating their son. Now this is fine, right? Racketeering, petty crimes, mob crimes. It's a very big thing in this era. But like, Dr. Fate is doing cool stuff, right? It just feels like Green Lantern has so much power even back here, but he's using it to fight. There's not been a single like exciting supervillain story for Green Lantern yet. Dr. Fate has all this cool stuff going on, but Green Lantern doesn't. He has literally dealt with racketeering and mobs and just money stuff, just petty money stuff that a vigilante would deal with. Every single issue he's appeared in so far. Which, you know, I feel like he deserves a little something more. I'm not saying he needs a supervillain, because that wasn't like a big thing back here, alright? Like right now, in the Golden Age, in the 40s, mob bosses and racketeering, those are the big things. That's what every superhero was dealing with. But I feel like Green Lantern could get something different instead of crooked lawyers. Moving on to All-Star Comics number 3, this comic introduces the Justice Society of America, which is also the first ever superhero team, which is big. It's a big deal. So it's the first meeting of the JSA. They've decided they're all going to meet up and be part of a superhero team. So basically, the intro section is probably the funnest part of this story, with Johnny Thunder, I think his name is, who's another character in DC. I don't remember what book he's in. I think it's Adventure, but I'm not sure. But he has like this power where if he wishes for something, he gets it, right? For 1 hour, he can activate his power, and during that hour, if he wishes for anything, he gets it. So it's really funny. There's a bunch of gags with him using his power incorrectly and goofily, and it sort of introduces all the members of the JSA in a way. It feels like almost like a kid's book. Like, obviously it's for kids, but this is the first comic I've read from this era that it's really obvious it's a kid's book, but also it's not like in a bad way. I still enjoyed it, and the intro part was the part that felt most like a kid's book, and it was the best part. But basically, Johnny Thunder, even though he's not part of the JSA, does convince them to tell all their most exciting stories and go around and tell their exciting stories to get to know each other. Superman, Batman, Robin, and Red Tornado were all mentioned but not present. And that's really all I have to say about that one. It's a fun issue, but I don't really have anything to say about the specific stories. I don't think any of them are from actual comics. I do think these are all news stories, but I'm not 100% sure on that. My brain gets a little foggy with all these comics I read. Because I am at 380 today, because it's day 38. That's all I remember, based on the day. Usually add a 0 to the end. What am I talking about? Batman number 4. This is probably the goofiest Batman comic so far. 3 of the 4 stories are really silly, man. The first one sees Joker start an evil circus. Joker starts a circus, and it's an evil circus, man. I don't know what else to say. It's like evil. It's like 1940s evil. So like, money laundering, murder, stuff like that. It's an evil circus. In a different story, Batman fights Blackbeard. It's a pirate story with Batman in it, which is cool. And in the final story in this issue, the 4th one, Batman's secret identity nearly gets exposed because of a football game. So there's some mobsters who are trying to rig the football game, and when Batman tries to stop it, his identity almost gets revealed. And it's really goofy. It's goofy. Also, every time one of these stories is a football game, I think about that one Superman comic from early on, that one Adventure Comics issue where Superman just kidnapped a guy and pretended to be him, and kind of ruined his life. And I really, that's probably my favorite Superman comic, actually. I want to go back to that one. Moving on to Big 3 number 2. Sadly, pretty boring. It's just stories from Blue Beetle, who are the other two? Samson, and I don't remember. It's like a fire guy or something. I don't remember his name. Blue Beetle number 5 is also boring, sadly. Blue Beetle has not, got his stride yet. Crack Comics number 8. I believe this is the first TZ comic where we have a focus on Nazis. Some guy fights the Nazis, and for some reason the Nazis in this book are led by a Chinese guy, which is a little confusing. I don't think the Chinese were on the Nazi side. It's a little, even if the Chinese were on the Nazi side, right? I know that's a stupid thing to say. I know you're probably thinking I'm dumb for not knowing whether they are. I'm sorry. I will educate myself. But it's still confusing to have this party of Nazis led by a Chinese individual. It feels racist, maybe, which, back then, Americans were very racist against the Chinese. Comics, very racist against the Chinese in this era. But, this is also still in 1940, which I believe is before America was involved in the World War. There's still Nazis in it. First, we have Detective Comics number 46. This was a Batman. I'm going to talk mostly about the Batman stuff. This is maybe the first time his little disappearing act is done, which is pretty cool. The first time, how it's the classic. He usually does it with Jim Gordon. Jim's talking, he looks away, he turns back, and Batman's gone. This is the first time he does that. Not with Gordon, who actually hasn't appeared since his first appearance, I feel like, in the first issue of Batman's appearance. In Detective Comics number 27, I don't think Jim Gordon has appeared since then, which is something I just realized. But this is the first time Batman does a disappearing act. This is also the return of Hugo Strange as a main villain. This is the first appearance of Fear Gas, although it is not used by Scarecrow and it is used up by Hugo Strange. This story follows Batman. After beating up a group of thugs, Batman stops when he realizes one of them is a 17-year-old boy. The boy promises to explain everything if Batman promises not to turn him in, so Batman agrees. The boy explains that the mob boss that is leading this gang, whose name is Carstairs, is working with some professor to take over the city. The boy gives Batman some pills that are supposed to be used by members of the gang to stop the professor's plan from working on them. Batman uses the boy to spy on the mob or whatever. He tells the boy to go and says, you go to the meeting and then tell me what happens. And discovers the professor is Hugo Strange. Then Batman is knocked unconscious while meeting with the boy, and he is captured. And while thugs begin going out and using the fear gas on people to steal from them, so they go around the city spreading the fear gas, infecting as many people as they can, so that it becomes easy to steal from them. Batman eventually wakes up and escapes. He calls Robin, and together the dynamic duo stop the fear gas from spreading any further, capture all the thugs, and Batman kills Hugo Strange. Pretty much. He punches him off a cliff and just kind of watches him fall. And, that's not a very good thing to do, Batman. Don't know why he did that. Now we move on to Future Comics number 39. I fucking hate Future Comics. Flash Comics number 12. Flash stops a war? This is very similar to an earlier Superman story. Okay, actually this isn't similar other than the fact, okay, there's a small country and there's a big country. The small country is being attacked by the big country. Flash is hired to be the small country's army, basically. And it's a really fun issue. He just sort of, it uses a lot of his super speed. It's really fun. It's really fun. He steals all the bad guys' weapons and their armor, and he does a lot of things. He steals like shells, big missiles, and there's a lot of stuff. He basically takes away everything the big army could use to destroy the little army, and he saves the day. He stops a war, and the big country is forced to agree to a peace treaty. Hit Comics number 6. I don't know. There's nothing really to talk about. There was one story with electric swords and one with invisible rays, and that's really all I care about mentioning, is that there were cool weapons in this one. Master Comics number 9, Bulletman protects the district attorney. Bulletman, DC's knockoff Captain America, is hired to protect the district attorney, and that's really all I have to say about Master Comics right now. Then we move on to More Fun Comics number 62, where we have a really fun Spectre issue. I actually really like this one. First it opens with this goofy ass arm scene. I don't know why his arm looks like that. It's like big and weird, and weirdly muscly. He can do that, I guess. This is the first time he's done anything like that. Also, reading this page was fucking impossible. Genuinely impossible to read. It's so poorly scanned. A lot of these old comics are, and that's unfortunate, I would say. Jim saves a woman who nearly drives off a cliff. It turns out this woman is the daughter of a famous scientist. When Jim asks for the bathroom and accidentally nears the wrong room, which happens to be the lab, the scientist gets really mad and offensive and kicks Jim out. The scientist goes to Dexter, which is one of his pupils, and he takes out Dexter's brain and turns it into a super brain, because he wants to make a super race. Days later, massive crimes start happening all over the city using elaborate genius plans, like they bomb the museum so they can steal from it easier. Maybe not the smartest plans, but they're portrayed as smart in the story. As the Spectre, Jim discovers the thugs are all returning to the scientist's house after the heists. The Spectre discovers the brain, which has kidnapped the professor and his daughter and put them in these big glass containers, and sort of like frozen them, I guess. Turns out the professor created the brain hoping to make a super race, but the brain decided a life of crime would be more profitable. The brain plans to kill the president and take over the country, but the Spectre saves the president by eating a bullet. And I thought that was a really funny panel. The brain then tries to have the brain then tries to have the scientist killed, but the scientist smashes the brain's jaw, which causes it to start growing in size and just absorbing anything that touches it. The Spectre is nearly absorbed but escapes through the Ring of Life, and then the Spectre does manage to destroy the brain, but not before it kills the professor, sadly. Now, also in More Fun Comics 62, we have Dr. Fate. There's a genius scientist. I actually really like this Dr. Fate issue. I like a lot of Dr. Fate stuff. A genius scientist named Raymond Rowell creates an army of robots that can each only be defeated by a massive cannon blast, which kind of isn't relevant because there's no cannon blast used against them ever. There's no, they're not ever defeated in that way in this comic. That's just kind of a thing that's mentioned and not used. Dr. Fate discovers the robots are controlled by radio frequency and manages to disrupt the radio waves long enough to deactivate most of them, which allows the soldiers who are defending from the robots that are attacking the city, and the defenders, the soldiers, are able to take apart the robots. And then Dr. Fate uses magnetism to trap the rest because he can't hold up the frequency disruptor for too long or something. Dr. Fate then tracks down Rawl to his base and condemns him to hell. Not really, he just sort of burns him in a big fire, which I guess is similar to being condemned to hell, surely. Mystery Men Comics number 17, Blue Beetle battles a gang, which is just like, Blue Beetle, kind of all Blue Beetle does right now, I'll be honest. He just does racketeering shit. That's I'm going to talk about this later. But racketeering is like a big thing in the 30s, 40s. Right? It's kind of all these comics are about, it feels like sometimes. National Comics number 6, Uncle Sam stops a foreign submarine. Smash Comics number 17, The Ray stops a hypnotic musician. Not the Pied Piper, there's a different hypnotic musician. Superman number 7 marks the first appearance of Perry White in the comics, following his first appearance in the Superman radio show. Perry White does replace George Taylor from here on out, I believe. In the first story, Superman saves a man on death row. In the third, he stops an election rigging, which is kind of cool. It's sort of just a standard racketeering plot, but with election rigging instead. And in the fourth story, he goes undercover to drive out a group of criminals. In the second story, though, which is my favorite, I love this one. This is a very fun issue. Story, sorry. First of all, it's in Gay City, which is great. People in Gay City are turning to glass and shattering upon bumping into anything. Perry sends Clark to investigate and tells Lois to stay behind because she's a woman. Lois goes behind his back and travels to Gay City anyways. Superman saves a bunch of people from crashing into shit, and then he starts investigating the source of the problem. He finds a scientist who's had his tongue cut out and leads him to large gas tanks that contain the gas that's turning people into glass. The scientist leads Superman there. So Superman throws the gas tanks into the ocean, which seems a little reckless. Like, I feel like that could have some pretty bad, that could do some bad things. Maybe not a great idea throwing them into the ocean. I feel like he surely had other options, and that wasn't the best option. I feel like that could have some severe consequences, but what do I know, right? What do I know? Superman then finds the antidote and brings it to Lois, who is slowly turning into glass because she bumped her arm into a chair and she was slowly turning into glass. So her entire arm was glass, and he brings her the antidote. Then he brings it to the commissioner, who steals it and runs into a crowd. And Superman doesn't want to scare everyone, so he can't chase him. And the commissioner then goes to the police and convinces them that Superman is causing the glass epidemic somehow. And then the commissioner jails Superman using a gas to weaken him. Superman does manage to escape, defeats the commissioner, and gives everyone the antidote. And he saves the day. He saves the freaking day because he's goddamn Superman. A lot of racketeering stuff. I did enjoy some of the comics here. I liked that Batman one. The Batman one was fun. The fear gas was good. A lot of gas in this today. Because we had Batman doing fear gas stuff. We had Superman with the glass gas. And, just a lot of gas overall, really, I'd say. A lot of fun stories. Dr. Fate, probably my favorite superhero currently. My favorite superhero is Superman, but in the context of reading every comic book ever, every DC comic book ever, only including stories I've read during this, Dr. Fate is currently my favorite character, counting only stories from the Golden Age, from what I've read of the Golden Age. Okay, does that make sense? Thank you. The first comic I read today was Wiz Comics number 11. Here we see Billy Batson get approached by his boss, the radio news guy, who tells him that he wants Billy to enroll in college and inspect the football team because it is now being coached by a former criminal. So Billy does an exam to get into college. He cheats on the exam by half calling upon Shazam, which is kind of cool. This is cool. I don't know if this happens again. I'm pretty sure this is the first time this happened. I don't remember this happening in any other issues. But he half calls upon Shazam by whispering, which is a thing he can do. He whispers Shazam, which half calls upon Captain Marvel, who appears behind him as a ghost and tells him what answers to put down. Which is interesting, because it kind of implies that Shazam is that Captain Marvel is a different person, but I know they're not. It's a little, I feel like the writers didn't think too hard about it, but I digress. Moving on, Billy goes and he gets accepted into school, and he gets hazed by sort of the big men on campus. They sort of haze him. They take him to this skull house and they hit him a bunch. And they take him and the other freshmen to the train tracks and they strap them down to scare them about the train. But the train's actually going to go on the other track. But then the lever gets stuck, so the train's actually going on this track that all the freshmen are tied down to. And then Billy obviously transforms into Shazam, puts the train on the other track, saves everyone without anyone noticing, and they all accept the freshmen into their group. With this, Billy becomes the water boy for the football team, and he doesn't really do much investigating, I feel like. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember. He discovers that the coach is, in fact, yes, a criminal, and he's also a gambler, so he's doing gambling on these sports games, and he is making it so that his team is going to throw the sports game, but he can't let the team know about that, right? He can't tell them, I'm going to make you throw this game. So he plans to drug them he puts like some drug in their water that's gonna make them, like be tired during the game. So Billy replaces the water with normal water, and then during the game, the coach, I guess, anticipated something like this happening, so he has a bunch of other plans to take out his own team. He has them get slingshot in the eye. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that happens. Eventually, the entire team is unable to play, and the other coach, the referee or something, is like, guess I have to call off the game. Billy steps in, goes Shazam, becomes Captain Marvel, says, hey, I'll play for the whole team. They let him do so, and he wins, and the gamblers don't get paid. And that's pretty much it. There's no real, like, full resolution. They don't, we don't see why. We don't really, I don't think we see the coach get arrested or anything. But, yeah. It was a pretty good comic. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I don't have much to say about it, though. Moving on to WoW Comics #1. The focus of this comic is Mr. Scarlet, who is a lawyer by day, vigilante by night. Kind of like Daredevil, but not blind. And he's also red, just like Daredevil. I don't have much to say about this specific issue, but I think the premise is cool. Moving on to Action Comics #32. I did really like this one. Sort of a similar premise to an older Superman issue. Gambling, right? Actually, also, gambling was the Shazam thing. Is there any more gambling in here? There's also gambling in Green Lantern. Yeah. Okay. So there's 3 gambling stories today, which is cool. Anyways, back to this. Right. So there's a secret gambling operation. Obviously, at this time in America, gambling is illegal. They can do that, right? But there's this secret place. I forget what it's called, but it's a house where they do gambling. And, some guy is about to kill himself. Superman saves him. The guy explains, I was going to kill myself because I lost all my money at this secret gambling operation. Clark goes to the mayor and says, let's investigate this place. Mayor goes down with him. Turns out, not a gambling place. Clark investigates some more. Turns out the mayor is in on it, but doesn't want to be anymore. So Clark and Lois go together to investigate. But Lois gets drugged somehow. They get separated. No, they get kicked out. They get pushed away at the door. Lois goes on her own into disguise, and then they find out she's with the press, and they capture her and they drug her to make her forget everything that's ever happened. She has no memory anymore. Superman does mental hypnosis to save her. He can do that now. He does it twice in the story. He does mental hypnosis, which I guess is cool. It's interesting. It's a power that he has now. I think Golden Age, Silver Age, they were just kind of giving him a bunch of bullshit powers, and I feel like this is the first time that's happened. But I know it's going to happen more down the line, probably in a bit. He does that. He stops the gambling. He stops the gambling. He uses a crypto ray gun he made to take pictures. So it's basically just a camera, but he calls it a crypto ray gun. Crypto ray gun. Right, crypto ray gun. So we can project stuff onto the walls. It takes pictures and then projects them onto walls. And he obviously saves Lois with the hypnosis or whatever. He saves another little kid with the hypnosis. Right, the mayor was in on it because his son had been given the mind wiping drug by the gambler guy. And so Superman saves the mayor's son, so the mayor is able to have the gambler guy arrested and have the gambling operation shut down. Superman uses the pictures and gives them to Lois, and then she can write a story. Okay, that's Action Comics #32. I really enjoyed this one. It's a lot better than the older gambling Superman thing. I don't remember what issue that was, but that was basically just Superman discovering gambling and then smashing a bunch of gambling operations. I don't remember what issue that was, but it's one of them. I think it was one of the earlier ones. I think it was Action Comics. No, I'm pretty sure it was Action Comics. Anyway, moving on. At Adventure Comics #58, we have the death of Fang Gao. Now, if you don't know who Fang Gao is, he's been around for a while, let me tell you. He has been around since, I feel like, New Fun #1, the first DC comic. I feel like. I'm not sure about that. He didn't make his first appearance until New Fun #12, I believe. Which might have been More Fun Comics by then. I think it was More Fun Comics by then. But he was there in #12. That was his first official appearance, but he had been in the background of Barry O'Neill beforehand. He's a Barry O'Neill villain. And after, we're in 1941 now, I believe. This is 1941. This is January 1941, actually. So it's been, since February 1935. So it's been a good 6 years of Fang Gao. He's probably one of the oldest DC characters at this point, right? Okay, I'm supposed to be editing right now, but I just wanted to show you this. If you look at my League of Comic Geeks, which I have specifically for this, I don't think you can see that, but he is actually the third most appearing character so far. I have this League of Comic Geeks account specifically for this reading every DC comic. So it's pretty cool. He's the third most appearing character. Number 1 is Barry O'Neill. Number 2 is Pep Morgan, which is unexpected. Anyways, back to the video. One of the longest lasting, you know. He's been around for a while, right? He started in New Fun. He been transferred over to Adventure. He's been around for a while. Big villain. Obviously very racist film, so I don't talk about it much, but it is a big thing that he died. Also, his death was very anticlimactic. He died in like the first 2 pages. They were gonna execute him and bury him at sea. He actually his death is fucking hilarious. His death is hilarious. Never mind. I don't care if it's anticlimactic because it's hilarious. He planned to fake his suicide with like a ring that would kill him, and then when they gave him a burial at sea because they were on a boat, the water would revive him. But when they throw his coffin in the water to give him a burial at sea, he hits a mine and explodes, which means and that's how he dies. This is his death. This is his last appearance. Maybe not his last appearance, but it's his death. And I think that's a really funny way to die. Moving on, we have All American Comics number 22. More gambling. Oh yeah, I really like the cover of this one. I'll put it on screen. So this isn't the cover of All American Comics 22. To be clear, this is the cover of specifically the Green Lantern section, but really like it. Okay, I remember now. It was a boxing match. There was a boxing match going on, and the coach of one of the boxers had been paying the other boxers his guy went against to take dives. But the new opponent is the heavyweight champion of the world, and he's not going to take a dive. He's honest. So the coach first tries to have him killed, fails because Green Lantern saves him, then tries to have his wife kidnapped and threatens her life if he doesn't take a dive. Green Lantern's like, okay, go the full 12 rounds, by the 12th round I'll have your wife, and then you can not throw. So Green Lantern saves his wife, comes back during the 12th round, the boxer's about to go down, he sees his wife in the crowd, he gets up, he wins. Boom, boom. And that's Green Lantern. Also, the street they take his wife when they kidnap her is called Ransom Street, which is a little on the nose, I think. They could have come up with something better than that. Moving on to Crack Comics number 9, I don't have much to say, but Red Torpedo fights some Nazis, and Black Condor stops an attempted murderer. Detective Comics number 47. This is sort of the first appearance of the Batcave, I feel like. It's not the Batcave, technically, but it is like, there's like a trapdoor underneath a barn that Bruce goes in, and there's like a hallway, like a tunnel, a secret tunnel, basically, that leads to Wayne Manor. And, you know, that's not really the Batcave, that's not the Batcave at all, but it's the closest thing we've gotten to the Batcave so far. Basically, in this issue, Batman fixes a dysfunctional rich family. The father doesn't really hang out with the son much because he's too focused on business. The mother doesn't want the daughter marrying someone who's poor, even though she is in love with someone who isn't rich. So, you know, there's this whole thing. Batman does whatever, blah, blah, blah. He helps them figure out their issues. The daughter gets to marry who she wants. The son gets to hang out with his dad. Boom. Future Comics number 40. I'm not talking about that shit. It's the worst part of my day. Flash Comics 13. Flash. Oh, right. There's a mine. There's a mine in the Wild West. Flash's buddy discovers a big silver vein in the mine. Flash's buddy gets injured. So Flash protects the mine from some thugs and the crooked sheriff. And he stops the crooked sheriff and he has him fired and proven to be guilty. And the sheriff gets replaced. And he saves the friend's mine and the friend gets to be rich. Sort of reminds me of the oldest New Fun issues with the Wild West stuff. It was fun. It was fun. Moving on to Hit Comics number 7. I have to talk about this one. I have to talk about Neon the Unknown because this is the greatest thing I've ever read. This is the best thing. I'm not even kidding. I gave this one 5 stars just for this Neon the Unknown story because it's the greatest story I've ever read. Not the greatest story I've ever read. The greatest story I've ever read during this journey, easily. 4 Tibetan monks. There are these 4 Tibetan monks. One of them disappears somewhere in the story, by the way. Just, it becomes 3 at some point, and they don't explain what happens to it, but there's 4 of them at the start. They use their mind powers, and they look at a globe. They stand around a globe, all 4 of them, and they use their mind powers to mind control the president of some unnamed country to start a war. So the president starts a war. Neon the Unknown hears about this, and he goes up to the president, and he's like, hey, why are you doing this? The president's like, I don't know, man, I don't know. Then, at that moment, the Tibetan monks get back to their controlling stuff, and they start, making him, and then he gets up and he's like, hey, I know why, because I hate that country. And he just has a complete flip. So Neon the Unknown is like, oh, I know what's going on. He grabs the president, flies into the sky, and starts dragging him around the planet until he, gets a signal or something. And then he finds the Tibetan monks. There's 4 of them in one panel, and the next there's 3. So that's the thing that happens. He starts fighting them. He's a man with unknown powers, by the way, which I feel like is just an excuse for the writers to not specify what powers so they can do whatever they want. But he discovers their plan, and then he gets in a mind match with 3 of them, because the 4th one has disappeared. Unexplained, by the way, not mentioned. But he uses his mind powers, and they have, a mind fight, and he wins, and their minds fucking explode. Completely explode. And it is... You gotta read it. You gotta read it. It's the greatest thing I've ever read. Please. Hit comics number 7, Neon the Unknown. Literally the first story, I think. It's amazing. It's not the first story, but it's in there somewhere. It's so good. I love it. I love it. This is my favorite day of this journey because I read that and I loved it. And I'm gonna reread that at some point. That's my favorite comic of all time. Honestly, if I'm being honest, it's my favorite comic of all time. Anyways, that's all I have to say for today. We had 10 great comics today. We had a lot of gambling stuff. We had some Neon the Unknown, some wacky stuff. Tomorrow, we'll get some Dr. Fate, which I'm excited for. But, other than that, thank you all for watching. Goodbye, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!